What we see here is some GUI interfaces of the fiber channel switches. So you can see the SN6000B at the top is a 48 port rack mount switch, and the SN6600B, which you see here, is a 64 port switch. And the way it enables 64 ports is you have 4 QSFP ports on the right hand side of the switch, which enables either 4 port QSFP to LC breakout cables to enable you to have 64 ports within 1U, or you can use these ports as 128 gig ISLs to basically build a meshed fabric with minimal cabling. Now, if I go into the zone admin of this switch, and it's the same whether it's a 16 or 32 gig switch, and I refresh the zoning table base to get everything as it should be to start off with, what we'll see is what we typically need to do is we have to provide an alias which gives us a humanly identifiable name for the 16-digit hex number, which consists on each port within the server. And similarly, we have to do this again for each port within our storage array. Once we've got some aliases, we need to zone the aliases together. So we put them in as zone members for a given zone. And once we've got our zones configured, we can add them to a zone config. So you would see multiple zones within this zone config. And then you would enable that zone config. Now, it's not overly difficult to do, but it is quite a labor-intensive task. So I'll show you what SMARTSAN 2.0 does for us. So as I mentioned, SMARTSAN 2.0 is a feature of the 3-part store-serve operating system, and it comes included in the all-inclusive licensing that we have for the single system. So to create a host and all the zoning associated with it, all I do is go into the host section within the management console, create the host, and then I get the pop-up box here, which is very similar to what we've always had for creating a host alias in 3PAR. But now if I type a name into this box, I will find some systems that are unzoned that are reporting their host name back. So for example, SMARTSAN 1. If I click on SMARTSAN 1, what I see is that this particular machine is a Windows 2012 or 2012 R2 server, which should be associated with host persona 15 on the 3PAR. So all of these pieces, these 3 items, have been populated for me automatically. And as we scroll down, we can see the multiple paths to this server, and we can see the worldwide names of each of those individual ports. What we can see is that these are then mapped to a pair of host ports in a port persistent configuration, which ensures that if a node was to fail or had to reboot, you would have non-disruptive connectivity to the storage array. So if I click create here, what will happen now is I will create my host alias within the 3PAR management interface as usual. But what we will also do is we'll go out to the SAN fabric and we'll create the zoning. And this bar graph here is another new feature of SSMC 3.1. It shows you the progress of the task that you're currently running. So if you wait for that bar graph to complete, which it just has, what I can do now is show you what that has done in the SAN switch. So back to the zoning GUI. If I refresh the SAN zoning, that will pick up any new zones that have been created. So if I drop back here to zones, in addition to zone 1, which I had originally, you can see we also have some new zones with an unusual name. So what these basically mean, TDZ stands for Target Driven Zone or Target Driven Peer Zone. And the machine it's come from is a 3PAR, and this 16-digit number here is the number of the worldwide name of the host port on the 3PAR array. And those of you familiar with 3PAR will know that these 3 digits here sorry, these 3 digits here, 022, mean node 0, slot 2, port 2. So NSP convention. And now what we'll see on the right hand side that this is an unusual zone. And the reason it's unusual is because rather than having a single pane here with all of my members and all of the members being equal, we now have principal members and peer members. The principal member is the member that controls the zone in this case because it's a target driven zone, but it's basically the fiber channel port on the 3-PAR array. The peer members are, as the name suggests, they're the peers within the environment, or the fiber channel adapters that are the host ports on the servers. And the reason we can do this is because you use a technology called peer zoning. And what peer zoning does is it only enables a peer member to communicate with a principal member, and it will not allow a peer member to communicate with another peer member. And what this means is that we're effectively providing the same level of security as single initiator, single target zoning, but with significantly less management overhead. So if I go back to SSMC and I show you the creation of the host without me talking through it, you can see that creating a host is actually really quick. Literally drop down list, click a button, go, and we're away creating our host alias within the 3-PAR, and we're creating our zoning. So I'll wait a couple of seconds for this one to complete. There we go. I'll go back to my zoning GUI in the switch and do another refresh to pick up the new zones. Give it a couple of seconds to do that. And what we should see now is the additional zones created for the additional server, right? Now, the other interesting thing that I mentioned earlier, and that one of the big challenges with zoning in legacy environments, is that you end up with a load of zones left over when people have decommissioned systems and haven't cleared the zoning away. That's not a problem with SMARTSAN, because literally if I go in here, pick a host and then delete the host, what is going to happen now is we're basically going to undo everything we've done, right? So we'll unzone the host, and then ultimately we shall remove the host alias from here. There we go. So the item no longer exists. So I go back to the zoning. I do another refresh. We should see 2 of the zones go away, and the ones with the QLogic adapters will go away, and the ones with the Emulex adapters will remain. So if I look here, yeah, so we've got Emulex adapters, but you see we've only got 2 target-driven zones left. Okay. So just to summarize then,